Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you had a heart attack and no one was around to help? I know, it's not something we like to think about, but it's important. And the truth is, many people find themselves in exactly that situation. Maybe you live alone, or maybe your partner's out running errands. The house is quiet and suddenly, something feels off. A pressure in your chest. A strange ache. You feel a little dizzy. And your first instinct might be to brush it off, to wait it out. But let me tell you something right now. Those first few minutes matter more than anything. You don't have to be a doctor or have a nurse next door to survive. You just need to know what to do and how to do it quickly. In this video, we're going to walk through 7 powerful, practical steps that could save your life if a heart attack ever strikes when you're alone. These aren't complicated, and they don't require fancy equipment. What they do require is presence of mind, a little preparation, and a willingness to act. So let's take a breath and start at the very beginning, because survival starts not in the hospital, but in your own awareness. And awareness means knowing the signs before the heart starts screaming for help. A lot of people think a heart attack will come on like thunder, sharp, sudden pain, clutching your chest, maybe collapsing right then and there. But that's not how it happens for everyone. In fact, most heart attacks begin quietly, almost like a whisper. You might feel a heavy sensation in the center of your chest, like something is pressing down slowly. Not sharp, but more like cement settling in. You could mistake it for indigestion, or tightness under the collarbone that feels like tension. You might feel tired, really tired, for no clear reason. Maybe your breath gets shorter, like you just walked upstairs, even though you've barely moved. That's what happened to George, a retired postal worker who now spends most mornings reading the paper at his kitchen table. One ordinary Tuesday, he felt a dull tightness just below his collarbone. He figured it was gas, or maybe just a sore muscle. But then he noticed he couldn't quite catch his breath. His palms started sweating, and that strange tightness didn't go away. He'd read once that not all heart attacks start with chest pain, so instead of toughing it out, he picked up the phone. That choice made all the difference. Sometimes the warning signs show up in other parts of your body. Pain or pressure might radiate into your arms, neck, or jaw. Some people feel nauseated. Some break out in a cold sweat. Others feel dizzy or suddenly anxious, like something just isn't right. And for older adults, especially women, symptoms might be more subtle. An ache in the back or stomach, or even just a wave of exhaustion that won't let up. The key is, don't wait for drama. If something feels wrong, especially if it's a combination of symptoms, pay attention. You don't have to be certain it's a heart attack. You just have to take it seriously enough to act. Because when it comes to your heart, doubt can be deadly. Now, once you recognize that something could be wrong, don't hesitate. The next step is critical. Get help, fast. That means calling 911 right away. Not your daughter, not your neighbor, not your doctor's office. Call emergency services. I know that might feel dramatic. Maybe you're thinking, what if I'm overreacting? Or, I'll just wait and see if it gets better. Or maybe you don't want to bother anyone. But let me be clear, heart attacks don't wait. And every minute your heart is deprived of oxygen, damage is happening. Calling 911 doesn't just bring help to your door. It brings trained professionals who can begin treatment the moment they arrive, and sometimes even before they get you to the hospital. Think about Carol. She's 77 and lives alone in a quiet suburb. One morning she felt an odd ache in her left shoulder and a wave of nausea. She thought about calling her son, but remembered a nurse once telling her, "Call 911 first. Family can wait." So she did. When the paramedics arrived, her symptoms had worsened, but they were ready. They stabilized her before even moving her. That call saved her life. And if you're worried about being wrong, don't be. Emergency responders would rather find out you didn't need them than arrive too late. The dispatcher won't scold you. There's no penalty for being cautious with your health. What matters is that you gave yourself a fighting chance. Keep your phone close, on the table, in your pocket, beside your bed. And learn where the emergency call function is, especially if your phone is locked. Some phones let you call for help just by pressing a button or two, even without unlocking it. That's worth practicing now before you ever need it. So you've recognized the signs and called for help. What's next? This one might surprise you. Chew an aspirin. Not swallow, chew. Slowly and calmly, even if your hands are shaking. If you're not allergic and aren't on a medication that says otherwise, aspirin can help keep blood flowing to your heart by slowing the clot that's causing the blockage. That simple act has saved countless lives. Walter, age 71, keeps a small bottle of aspirin in a drawer by his recliner. One morning he felt a strange tightness in his chest that crept up toward his jaw. He reached for the aspirin, chewed it slowly, and sat down to wait for the ambulance. Later, the doctor told him that quick decision likely reduced the amount of damage to his heart. One small step, one big impact. If you live alone, consider placing aspirin in a few easy-to-reach spots, next to your bed, in the kitchen, even in your wallet. Don't worry about fancy coatings or extended-release tablets. If that's all you have, use it. But regular chewable or standard aspirin works fastest. Don't let perfection get in the way of action. After you've taken the aspirin, the best thing you can do is nothing. Literally. Sit or lie down. Don't start gathering belongings or unlocking doors unless you have to. Every movement puts more strain on a heart that's already struggling. Rest, breathe slowly, and stay calm. Picture yourself handing off the baton to the next runner in a relay. You've done your part, now let the professionals do theirs. Dorothy, 81, once told her doctor that if she ever had chest pain, she'd probably try to clean the kitchen first, just in case someone came over. Her doctor smiled and said, "No, if it's your heart, you sit down. That's your only job." And when the moment came, she remembered those words. She sat. She survived. You may feel tempted to keep moving, to get ready, to do something. But your body needs stillness. The calmer you are, the better your heart can hold steady until help arrives. And if you've made it this far with me, if you're still listening, I want to thank you. Because taking the time to learn this could be the reason you're still here years from now, laughing with a grandchild or sipping coffee on your porch. You're not helpless. You're prepared. And we're just getting started. If you still have enough strength after calling for help and settling into a safe, comfortable position, there's one more action you can take that could make all the difference. Unlock your door. It might sound small, almost silly compared to everything else we've talked about, but that simple step could save precious minutes. And in a heart attack, every second counts. Paramedics are trained to break in if they have to, of course. They'll do what's needed. But imagine this. They arrive quickly, ready to help, and they're stuck outside trying to get in. Those few moments fumbling with locks, trying to force open a door or waiting for backup, they matter. Meanwhile, you're inside, maybe feeling weaker by the minute, maybe unable to even call out anymore. Harold, 75, lives in a cozy condo with a heavy front door and a security latch. When he felt that crushing pressure across his chest, he did what he was supposed to. He called 911, chewed his aspirin, and sat down. But just before doing that, he managed to unlock the door. And because of that, the paramedics walked right in. No delay, no damage. Later, one of them told him, "That unlocked door saved us at least 30 seconds, and that's a lot when the heart is in crisis." Harold didn't know it at the time, but he'd given himself a head start on survival. Now, I want to be clear. If getting to the door feels too risky, don't push yourself. Stay where you are, breathe slowly, and conserve your energy. But if you're close and you feel steady enough to do it safely, unlocking the door could make a real difference. And while we're at it, let's think ahead a little. If you live alone or you're in a gated building, what would happen in an emergency? Would the responders know how to get in? Is your address clearly visible from the street? Do you have a spare key that someone nearby can get to? These are small things to consider now, while everything is calm, so that if something does happen later, there's one less obstacle in the way of saving your life. Some people even install smart locks with remote access, or they keep a lockbox with a key near the door. That way, emergency crews can access your home without breaking anything. And having that plan in place brings a quiet kind of peace, like laying out an umbrella before the rain comes. You may never need it, but if the storm hits, you'll be glad you did. Now, while you're waiting, you'll likely have your phone nearby. And that device, yes, the one you use for checking the news, watching YouTube, or calling the grandkids, can be your lifeline in more ways than one. One of the most helpful things you can do is switch to speakerphone. That way, you can talk to the dispatcher without holding the phone to your ear, which might feel exhausting or even interfere with your breathing. Using speakerphone also lets the dispatcher listen to you more clearly. They can hear if your breathing changes. They might notice if you suddenly stop speaking or drop the phone. And you'll be able to respond without straining, especially if you feel your body weakening. Margaret, 78, always kept her phone nearby, but never really thought much about its medical features. Then one afternoon, when she began to feel a heavy burning sensation in her chest and a wave of nausea, she remembered what her daughter had shown her, how to access the medical ID on her phone. She called 911, turned on speaker, and kept herself calm as she waited. When she lost consciousness just before the EMTs arrived, they were able to check her phone and see everything they needed: her allergies, medications, and emergency contact. That information helped them avoid giving her something dangerous. It also helped them call her daughter right away. Setting up your medical ID on your phone takes less than 5 minutes. On an iPhone, you can do it through the Health app. On Android, it's usually in the emergency info section under Settings. You enter your name, birth date, medical conditions, medications, allergies, and a couple of emergency contacts. That's it. And it can be accessed even when the phone is locked. This feature isn't just for the tech-savvy. It's for anyone who wants to make sure that if they can't speak, their phone still can. Because the truth is, when help arrives, those first few moments are critical. Having that information at their fingertips helps responders make smarter, safer decisions right away. Now, I know all of this might feel a bit overwhelming. You're feeling strange symptoms. You've called for help, taken your aspirin, unlocked your door, and now you're sitting there alone, waiting. The minutes feel heavy. Time slows down. Maybe fear starts creeping in, and your mind starts to race. But here's something powerful you still have: your breath. That's right. In the midst of the fear, the uncertainty, the rising panic, your breath can become your anchor. You don't need a fancy breathing technique. Just something simple and steady to keep your heart from going into full alarm mode. Try this. Breathe in slowly through your nose for about 4 seconds. Hold it for a brief moment. Then exhale gently through your mouth for about 6 seconds. Repeat that. Just breathe. Let each breath carry away a little bit of the panic. This isn't about curing the heart attack, but it is about giving your body the best chance to stay steady until help arrives. When you panic, your heart races, your oxygen levels drop, and everything becomes harder. But when you breathe slowly and consciously, you give your heart a chance to hold on. That's what Eugene, 81, remembered when he felt that crushing weight in his chest. The fear was almost worse than the pain. He felt like he was drowning in worry. But then he heard his doctor's voice in his head, reminding him to breathe. So he did. In and out. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Again. And again. It wasn't magic, but it helped. When the medics arrived, his heart was unstable, but still beating. He'd bought himself time. With his breath. This breathing practice is something you can try right now, even if you're not in danger. Practice it when you're resting, watching TV, or getting ready for bed. Let it become second nature. That way, if the day ever comes when you need it, really need it, you'll already know how to call on it. calm breath, steady heart. And I want you to remember this. Surviving a heart attack alone isn't about luck. It's about readiness. You don't have to be a hero or a health expert. You just need to know your body, trust your instincts, and take small, smart steps when it counts. Even if no one is physically with you, you're not powerless. You have tools. You have knowledge. You have choices. And with every one of those choices, you bring yourself a little closer to safety. You've done everything you can. You've recognized the symptoms, you've called for help, you've taken an aspirin, sat down, unlocked the door, and now you're breathing through the fear. That's not just a list of actions. That's a chain of courage. One choice after another that says, I'm not giving up. I want to live. That's what this is really about. Not just survival, but taking your life seriously. Valuing your future. Trusting that your life is worth protecting even in the loneliest, most terrifying moments. Because it is. And now that we've walked through all 7 of these life-saving tips, I want to say something clearly, from one heart to another. Even if you've never thought of yourself as strong, you are. Even if you've spent a lifetime putting others first, it's not selfish to learn how to take care of yourself. In fact, it may be the most loving thing you ever do, for you and for those who love you. A heart attack can feel like the ultimate moment of isolation. But when you know what to do, you've already built a bridge between fear and survival. And if you've watched this far, you've already crossed that bridge in your mind. That matters. So, let's take a breath together and look back, not as a list, but as a story of strength. You noticed something wasn't right. Maybe it wasn't dramatic. Maybe it was just that quiet pressure in your chest, or a wave of exhaustion that didn't feel normal. You paid attention. You didn't talk yourself out of it. You trusted your gut. You reached for the phone, even if your hands were shaking. You dialed 911 and let a stranger on the other end of the line walk you through the unknown. You chewed that aspirin like it was the most important thing you could do, because it was. You sat down, not because you were giving up, but because you were giving your heart a chance to hold on. You unlocked the door, or you prepared for it ahead of time. You used your voice, or your phone's features, to stay connected to help. And through it all, you kept breathing, not just to survive, but to stay steady in the middle of the storm. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is preparation meeting courage. And you don't have to wait for a crisis to start being that person. You can be them now. So ask yourself, what part of this stuck with you the most? Was it George realizing that shoulder tightness wasn't just tension? Was it Carol making the call before her son? Maybe it was Walter with the aspirin, or Margaret's medical ID saving her from a dangerous medication. Maybe it was Eugene, alone with his breath, riding out the worst of it one slow inhale at a time. Whoever you saw yourself in, hold on to that. Let it remind you that your story isn't finished, and that your next chapter could be brighter simply because you took the time to learn what most people never do. Now, if there's one more thing I can leave you with today, it's this. Talk about this with someone you trust. Share what you've learned with a friend, a spouse, a sibling, your adult child. Ask them if they've thought about what they'd do in this situation. You might be surprised how few people have a plan, but you do now. And your example might just give someone else a second chance too. I know this wasn't the lightest conversation, but it may have been one of the most important. And if you're still here with me, thank you. You chose to invest in your future. You chose to face a scary what if, not with fear, but with clarity. That matters more than you know. If this video helped you, please let us know in the comments. Share one thing you learned, or something you plan to do differently from now on. Your words might encourage someone else to take the first step. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel Strong Elderly Life, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. We're here to support you, inform you, and walk with you every step of the way. You are not alone. You are not helpless. You are strong, prepared, and more resilient than you think. Your best days aren't behind you. They're still being written. Here's to life. Here's to strength. And here's to living every moment like it matters, because it does. We'll see you in the next video.